Hey everybody, Brendan here. Welcome back to another tournament game analysis video. Why did I just say that? I literally said last time that I am in the... That's not what we're doing today! Ah! It's okay. Anyways, yeah, so we are playing a King's Indian Attack speedrun, so don't mind me. I'm just going insane. Slowly but surely. And we're getting a Dutch that we're playing against right now, so clearly our opponent plays the Dutch and is just hoping that we get into something like it. But the good thing is we haven't played d4 or c4, so with playing d3, we can hope to play e4, or we can just not do that, right? We could also try something like c4, but my guess is they're going to play something like d5. So it's probably best to play some sort of like knight c3, e4. Generally, in the Dutch, you want to go for the e4 break, not really c4. Since we didn't play d4, c4, that's not going to matter as much. But I'm just trying to figure out how we can make it work. So if we go knight c3 right now, they're probably going to go d5. If we go knight d2, d5 as well. But I want to go like knight c3, bishop g5. Something along these lines. But it's really difficult to do. Maybe because of that, we should just accept that they're going to get d5 and they're going to get their stonewall structure. And we're just going to have to play around it. So I'll play c4. And if they end up playing d5, there's two ways I can play. I can play knight c3, hoping that they play d4, which I don't think is a good thing for us this time around. Okay, so they're going c6. And again, this is clearly aimed towards trying to get the move d5 in. If I go knight c3, my threat is e4, so they'd have to play d5. But again, d5 is not such a bad thing for them. If I take it, do they take with the e pawn or the c pawn? This is interesting. Again, I'm opposed to playing d4, which looks very tempting here, though. Just because we're playing a King's Indian attack. But we might have to change our approach here and play d4. Or knight c3, and then if they play d5, we take it twice, and then we play d4. We lose a tempo. I could always try bishop f4 after d5. Or knight d2. Really trying to get e4. Knight d2 is actually really interesting. If d5, then e4, takes. Yeah, knight d2 looks good. Knight f3 to d2. I'm just realizing that d5, we can meet it with e4. Generally, that's the break you want. So that's the break I'm going to go for. So yeah, c4 might have been a waste of time. Maybe I should have played the knight on f3 to d2. Because now, all of a sudden, the reason why the knight on f3 to d2 is better is because the bishop's also contributing to playing e4. So, if d5 here, then e4. If they take it, I just recapture. And everything is sufficiently defended. c4 is defended, e4 is defended. Everything's barely defended, just enough for me to successfully get the move in, which makes me happy. I feel like a dream scenario here is to open up the E file. Generally, that's why this move e4 is so good. So again, let's look at it. e4, if they take it, we can just take back. We're not scared of them pushing because we can just take it. It looks like a free pawn. Well, free pawn as in like, it looks like a pawn. But, you know, it's going to take a little bit of effort to make sure we're not losing it or anything. Yep, everything looks good. We can also just ignore it as well after f4. Yep, great. e4. Takes. And if they take with a knight or something, we can just take back. Bishop takes, and they're just left with a weakness on e6. So we got e4 in successfully. We should be very happy about this. Yeah, I feel extremely happy. We're gonna follow up with moves like knight to c3 next. Just continually adding more pressure. We don't really need to worry about this. I think their idea might be some sort of bishop c5 to follow up, but I'm just gonna keep developing, I think. This looks appropriate. If they go knight to g4, that's when I should start paying a little bit more attention to what's going on, because they're trying to play bishop c5 and take after that. But they're just not in time. So I can go queen e2. Queen e2 is eyeing that bishop a little bit, and I like it a little bit more than playing queen b3 or queen c2, because now I'm threatening to win a pawn with taking on f5. If bishop c5 right now, I do have knight to a4. This is important to mention, that I can fork these two pieces, and ultimately their dark squared bishop is going to be their better minor piece here. This bishop is kind of blocked in because of their pawn structure. So if bishop c5, then we can play knight to a4. Yeah, so this I'm not too worried about. It looks like we can just take now. This looks good for us, because after we take, again, they have to worry about the fact that this piece is hanging. And some lines to make sure of is after bishop c5, or actually no, not even that. After it takes, queen takes e7, making sure that rook to e8 doesn't win the queen. But luckily, we do have queen to a3. So that's something I had to make sure of when I took on f5. Okay, so they move to b4. This doesn't really concern me. If they take on c3, that's fine, just because they are giving up their dark squared bishop, and we are getting this nice pawn out of this situation here. We can also try other moves like knight to a4, but I like taking the pawn. Their idea might be to go rook e8, and I can't play e7, and it might be hard to keep the pawn. But it looks like we should have something there. Like bishop h3, holding on to the pawn looks like it works. It's a little odd, but there might be better moves like knight d5 or knight e4. We could also play knight e4 immediately. One of these knights to e4. Because generally it doesn't even look like they want to take anyways. We should be careful though, that we don't just end up in a worse position. That's why I'm really enjoying the look of knight e4. Because it doesn't look nice to deal with. Yeah, let's play knight e4. So I'm not even going for the extra pawn, because it looks like they're probably going to get it back anyways. And this feels a little bit more concrete. Objectively, I would still be up a pawn. You know what? I should have gone into it. My apologies. Okay, nope, never mind. I shouldn't have gone into it, because this is just an excellent position. This is near winning now. Forget what I just said. But I realized, yeah, I probably could have taken it, and that would have made sure I'm up a permanent pawn instead of 2 pawns up. So even though I'm saying, you know, that it's okay now, I really didn't have to do that. Because they could have taken on f5, and they would have had weaknesses that we could have spoken of, but I'm trying to be a bit more how do I describe it? I'm trying to not allow them to go for or I'm trying to take all the material I can. There we go. I said it. I can finally speak words. So after bishop c5, there was an idea I had in mind, and it's an idea I'm going to play here. I want to attack this bishop and trade it off, but I don't want to trade it off for my dark square bishop, because my dark square bishop's better. So knight a4 attacks the queen and their bishop. We will be able to take on c5 next. They're actually having a difficult time here to defend the bishop. Like queen a5 or queen b4 feel really awkward. But ultimately, they're not losing any material after takes. It's just uncomfortable for them, that's all. Now I like a3 to go for b4. I could go b4 as well, or after queen takes, rook to b1, but they have queen a5, so I'm just going to go a3, b4. Knight to b3 might be reasonable for them here. But again, the bishop pair is just doing excellent job. We have moves like bishop h6 that we could play in the future. The thing is, originally I didn't want to play it because when they had their bishop on the board still, I threw in this move to hope they would play bishop c5. But when they have the bishop on the board, I can't really access g7 so easily if I play bishop h6. But now it's a different story. And rook e8, it looks like a blunder. It looks like b4 should win a piece. They can play something like knight b3 if they want. I'm taking the queen. So this looks like a win now. Not really sure what they can do about that. We're almost at the 1500s. We're almost playing against 1500s now. We got to get our rating a little bit higher. I have it set to be plus or minus 50 points, just so we are seeing lots of like people around the same rating range slowly as we go up. Hopefully that makes sense. So queen to b3. Not really sure the point there. I could just go rook to b1, ask them where they want to go. And then after queen c3, go rook c1, and then slowly make my way to d1 or something. That's playable. I also don't mind things like queen f3, giving up the pawn. You know, I don't want to give up the pawn. I'm just going to play rook f b1, queen c3, rook c1. I can get these with tempo. And after this, now I'm going to play things like queen f3. And all of a sudden, c4 is defended. And now I'm trying to creep into their position, look at the dark squares a little bit more, and try to prove that they are much worse. They are down a piece as well, so that's a good reason to consider the idea that they're worse. But I'm trying to go for more. Okay, so this looks like a piece. Let's take with the queen. We don't have to take with the queen. We could have taken with the rook. And maybe taking with the rook is better because we can go for a mate in this position. I thought we'd try simplifying and just show how to win here when we're up 2 bishops. So, yeah, I'll just attack the backward b7 pawn to start. Okay. Let's play a4 because they were looking at the pawn, and now they're not. I'm not really worried of back rank stuff. If rook d8, I'm just going to throw in bishop to f1 here, see if they want to play rook d1 or not. I don't want to really get rid of the back rank when there's 2 rooks on the board because, you know, you can see things like a rook d1 to a1 and then the other rook over. And maybe things can go wrong. Here I'm just trying to focus on targeting a bunch of different weaknesses. Generally, when you're up this much material, you can just shuffle a little bit. You don't want to shuffle aimlessly, of course, because that's not a good idea. But here, this isn't shuffling aimlessly. I'm just poking and prodding at different areas of the board. Now I'm looking at moves like bishop h3 as well. Every weakness of mine is defended. The rook is defending a4. This bishop's defending e3. And I don't care if this rook comes off the board. And because of that, I'm playing bishop h3 next move, which attacks this rook on d7 and asks them, do you want to disconnect your rooks? Or do you want to trade rooks, which also benefits me because more stuff's coming off the board when I'm up material. So they end up just going for rook d1 immediately, which is fine. I'm just going to throw in rook d4. Yeah, let's throw in rook d4. Centralize the rook a little bit. If they take, then again, this becomes much easier. And if they don't, king g2, bishop d3 check is coming. It's hard to attack c5 because they don't have the c1 square. Yeah, let's give a check. If they go here, I'm thinking of f4 check, forcing them to go back even further. I'll take on h7. Looks like a free pawn. And now my h-pawn's going to run, and they can't really stop that so easily. Bishop to f2, just to defend c5, just to keep contact with c5 and my rook. This is a hanging rook. I think they missed that. And they resign. Great. So let's talk about the opening, because I think this is our first time seeing someone play the Dutch against our King's Indian attack. So that's interesting. Generally, you want to play d4 in these positions. So again, if you're a d4 player and you're thinking of things to do, maybe try starting with the knight f3 order. Could offer you some interesting play in general, just because you can just play your d4 positions. Generally, if people go for a weird response, again, we discussed before that sometimes people go for like knight c6 here, but generally after d4, the knight doesn't really want to be on c6 and d4 openings. I mean, there's still openings where this is the case, and you can still get a fine position as black, but theoretically, like, the knight doesn't want to be in front of the c7 pawn. All right. So anyways, we get our normal position, and this feels extremely good. Bishop e7, again, d4 is kind of popping up most. d3 not as much. But after castles, again, I was looking at this knight d2, not here, but the move after. And I wanted to play knight b d2, but the problem is I was worried about maybe either d5. I guess d6 is playable too, but I was worried about d5 here. And we can't really play e4 so comfortably without bringing a piece to the e file. So after c4, c6, now knight b d2 became really interesting to me. e5 is supposedly good, which is interesting. I think the idea of e5 here is to point out that if we go into this e4 structure, they're getting a... It's kind of... I don't know how to word it. It's like a weird e4, e5 opening where I've finqueroed and they've played f5 early, which is interesting. But after d5, this kind of justifies, I believe, what I've done with e4. And after e4, d takes e4, d takes e4, things are starting to open up. And even though, again, e5 should be played, this feels relatively comfortable, I'd say. But the reason why I think this is so good is, again, mainly because just imagine you get an f5 break and an e4, e5 opening. Sometimes that can really serve you well. So it's really interesting to see this. But okay, after d takes queen b6, now things start going wrong. I was looking at e5, but I wasn't sure after e5, knight g4, something like maybe queen e2 would have to be played to defend e5. And maybe they try attacking it again. I don't think bishop c5 works. f2's defended enough, but maybe some like queen c5. I was a little bit worried of these variations. I should just show it on the board, actually. I wasn't sure exactly if something like this was anything. Like, actually, even queen d4 looks really interesting here. With the idea of queen e4, which is a really funny idea. But the idea here is simply to trade queens. Like, if we trade queens, then we have no right to claim an advantage anymore. First off, they have e3 before they take, which is extremely annoying. But they can also take, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But we do get that isolated e6 pawn. The only problem is we do also open up the f file for them. So there's pros and cons to it. Anyways, so knight to c3. Rook to d8 here, queen to e2, knight to a6, and now, yeah, we're just winning at this point with e takes f5. And honestly, I really should have taken on e6 in my opinion, but the good thing is that knight e4 is not so bad either. Like, it's still a really good move, so I'm not as upset, because this does offer us a good position. But generally for the series, I was trying to make sure that we stay materially minded. We take all the material we can when we can. And if we take on e6, yeah, they'll get the pawn back after rook to e8. There's not really a great way to defend it anymore. Like, bishop h3 is really asking for trouble. And actually, yeah, it is a little bit of trouble here. After knight to c5, I was imagining knight c7 in a position like this. But no matter what, yeah, this e6 pawn is going to be dropped in a few moves, so why are we trying to defend it? And yeah, so I think like if we did end up just taking it, we could just play the position by putting in knight on e4, extremely active. We're just up an f pawn, and things look extremely good for us because you know their king's a little bit weaker as well. There's a lot of reasons why having just one extra pawn can be a big deal here. That kind of covers it for the main part of the game. Here, after knight takes f6, I think we all can agree, despite it being equal material, this position looks absolutely atrocious with their double isolated and isolated pawn on the king side. So their king is extremely weak. We have the bishop. Well, we don't have the bishop pair, but after bishop c5, we definitely do have the bishop pair. After knight to a4, and things are just naturally going to fall apart as long as we just keep some pieces on the board. Even if we reach like a rook ending or something somehow, they have so many more weaknesses than we do. Even that would favor us, like even a position with trading down. But generally, we wouldn't want to trade too much because we want to go for checkmate and try to exploit the fact that their king is weak and they also have weak pawns. So, yeah, I guess the big thing to cover from this game is mainly the opening. Is this might be a problem for us later on if they're going for positions like this. And if they ever go for these d5 positions, I guess the way we should look at it is, I was thinking maybe we can try some sort of bishop f4 lines, and maybe that's what we're going to have to go for. I'm a little concerned about these lines because we do get the backward e pawn. But it looks like what we can do is actually just play e3 and maybe just follow up with d4 anyways. So this might be one of the few exceptions to our opening. I'm not opposed to playing like this. I'm just wanting to stay within the opening as much as I can. But the Dutch might be one of those cases where we should really play on their turf in a way, because the Dutch is not the greatest opening here. But like at least especially against just regular d4 systems, like it seems like the Dutch generally suffers, so we want to play that if it's gonna cause them problems, and that's really the main and only effective way to play against it, is going for these d4 positions. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. All right, bye bye.